Are you stuck in the same old routine at work? Do you find yourself hitting a creative wall, unable to see beyond your current perspective? It's time to break free and unlock the power of fresh perspectives. David Gouthro back again with another episode of Discover Fresh Perspectives. Today I have my pleasure of having a guest by the name of Carrie Sackett. Welcome, Carrie.
Hi, David. It's great to be here.
So, Carrie, we were just talking a little bit before we started recording. You said a number of things that kind of tweaked my interest, and you said that one of the things that you do is life and relationship coaching. And we'll come back to that. But you also said that you're known as America's loneliness coach. Now, I'm presuming that doesn't mean that you coach people on how to be lonely, but probably the opposite. So maybe you could just tell me a little bit about what a loneliness coach does and what you mean by loneliness, because it's one of those, coming out of COVID, that was, people talking about how that's a horrible thing. We're all suffering from it and things like that. So maybe first of all, what do you mean by loneliness? Then secondly, what on earth does a loneliness coach do?
Absolutely. Again, thank you for having me on. I've listened to some of your interviews and they're fabulous. So I've been really looking forward to our conversation. And sometimes people introduce me as the loneliest coach. So
Oh,
that's not. So, what I mean by loneliness and what it is in the world, um, it's that feeling of disconnection from others. It can be, that um, inadequate, meaningful connections, like an emotional lack in our
mhm,
lives or disassociation. Those are all, definitions of loneliness. Of course, all of us experience loneliness differently.
mhm,
And the main point is that we have created a lonely world. Not only COVID. In Canada, from the recent surveys, 1 in 10 Canadians say that they frequently or always feel lonely. 1 in 3 say they often feel
mhm.
lonely.
So maybe just to look at some of these terms, because I think some people, have confusion distinguishing between being alone and being lonely, because they're not the same. Can you say a little bit more about that, please?
Yes. Thank you for that. So we can walk into a room at a party and feel lonely. We can
Hmm.
be afraid and feel lonely. We could live alone and not feel lonely. We could sit under a tree by ourselves and read a book and not feel lonely. So,
Mhm.
um, we can be very successful at the top of our game and feel lonely.
Yeah, I mean, I often hear about people that are very wealthy, and you think, well, they have everything. They have these billions of dollars, and yet they
Yeah.
would describe themselves as being lonely.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So,
what I do,
well, and just because another thing just occurred to me that sometimes, people toss around the term introvert and extrovert, often without really understanding it. So, yeah, I've heard some people say, "Well, you're an introvert. I don't imagine you get lonely," which I'm pretty sure isn't true. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
yes. The short answer is the labels that we keep creating and attaching to other people it's hurting us and it makes connection more difficult when we put other people in boxes and assume that we know who they are. That's part of what keeps us lonely.
And you also made a comment that we've kind of created a culture and environment of loneliness. What are some of the things that have contributed to that? And I'm going to pause for a moment while I sneeze. Never done that in a podcast recording before. Yes, folks, this is totally transparent. So,
Well, so there are now, there are studies, there are prescriptions of what to do for loneliness, there are explanations for loneliness. Some of the obvious ones that people talk about are COVID, all of us being more attached to our phones and social media, the breakdown of community-based organizations, the how families don't live near each other anymore, how it's how someone we it's normal to pick up and move to a new city for a job and not know anybody. So there's a whole bunch of different factors that people talk about. What
And
people don't talk about so much
Mhm.
is the cultural assumption that is baked into the West, let's say Anglo cultures in particular, um, is that you are an isolated individual. It is your job to fix yourself. If you feel lonely, you better go read the book or do the thing they're telling you to do. And if you don't do it, it's your problem that you're lonely. You should pick yourself up by your
Mm.
bootstraps. That keeps us lonely.
I won't dive into politics other than to say one of the things that I've heard from Heather Cox Richardson, who I love to follow, is
Mhm.
that there used to be like the culture of the Republican culture was kind of like the pioneer culture. You do it on your own, the champion sort of stuff, and more the Democratic. By the way, in Canada, I don't really understand what all this means anyhow, but a lot of the Democratic governments were more about supporting each other. So there's ensuring everyone gets supported. So those are polarized views on from a political standpoint. But I
Yeah.
wonder if I'm bouncing around here, how does one experience loneliness? I don't want to assume that everyone is self-aware and knows what their emotions are and things like that. How if one was wondering, I wonder if I really am lonely, how would I go about figuring that out?
That's a great question. The surveys that go out to people, they put it on to people. They say, "How
Hmm,
often do you feel lonely?" And then people say, "Oh, I feel lonely once a week or every day," or whatever they say. How do you know you feel lonely? I think it's the sense of not having people you can call, to lean
hmm,
on, to
hmm,
be
mhm.
seen, to be heard. And
I
that's
get
that's
so
why we've created a lonely world. We all have the experience at some point in our days and in our lives of not being seen and not being heard.
No, I was just thinking about some of these differences, the way that I think about it, and being alone is like just a statement of fact that there's nobody around me, right? But lonely is actually a feeling, and as you pointed out, that you can feel lonely in a room of many people. So, I'm curious, Carrie, as someone that coaches in this area. Like, what's the conversation like that you have with someone? And do they come to you because they're feeling lonely, or you're coaching them? I know you're a life and relationship coach, and you somehow sense that loneliness might be an issue. How do you get in that? How do you help people understand it? And beyond that, perhaps move through that?
Mhm. Well, it's both. Some people come to me, like that example of being a professional who moves to a new city,
Mhm.
works from home, and just hasn't been able to find community and build community. Um, so people come to me through couples coaching, and
Mm,
what
mm,
merges in that work is how lonely somebody's feeling in the relationship. That's another way that people come to it. In my group work, I had this group recently. Somebody kicked off the group and said, and people come to my life development groups, they come from all different areas that they want to grow around in work, life, and whatever. So it's a very diverse group. It's not a single topic group.
mm,
But somebody started the group a couple weeks ago and they said, "What kind of lonely are you?" And
mm,
we went and then and so somebody said, "I'm frustrated lonely. I want a romantic relationship. I don't have one." Someone else said, "I'm future lonely. My kids aren't going to have kids. I don't get to be a grandparent. I'm social lonely. I go out, but I don't feel
mm.
connected to people. I'm married lonely." So part
Wow.
part of
Mm,
the my wife and I, we don't talk below the surface. So as a group lead, I my response to all this is, how fantastic fantastic is this? What a great diversity of loneliness. How was it for everyone to hear this variety of loneliness? So, what we one part of tackling loneliness is we have to make it more ordinary. We have
Mhm,
to
mhm.
we have to break out of the shame of feeling lonely. I really wish that we would all walk into our local coffee shops in the morning, wave at the barista, say, "Hey, good morning. I'm feeling lonely today. I'll have that double latte." You see how in in these stories, it's the relationality. It's that where you're performing loneliness with others. That's what helps get us out of it and build more connection and relational muscles.
So let me just link it to something else that you said is that you do a lot of group coaching. That's a specialty of yours. And so, can you tell me a little bit? It can be about loneliness or not, but how you work with groups, especially when you have that diversity, for example, of loneliness. How big are the groups? How do you do that? That's intriguing.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about life development groups. They're very powerful for people. They really turbocharge growth. It's usually, I work virtually, by the way. So I have
Oh,
clients all throughout the Americas and Europe, Middle East,
mhm,
and Africa. And my groups are 4 to 12 people, and most of them meet weekly. Some of them meet bi-weekly, and then and they're ongoing groups. So people join
mhm,
and then they stay as long as they stay, months or years. And because they've built that sense of community, they stay.
mhm.
Sometimes I run short-term groups, like 4-week groups, so people can get a taste of what it's like to be in a group. And the growth element is that people are diverse, bringing different histories, different experiences, different conflicts, different ways of expressing emotion, and that's what we build and create with. And it's in the building of the group, the creating with the mess to experience that you can create with messiness with other people and come out the other side of it. That is such a powerful discovery for people. Well,
I, I
to their lives.
I would imagine that even if the topic wasn't about loneliness in a group, somehow that would be dealt with in a way that the bonds are being made with those other folks. You know, you have psychological safety and all those other kinds of things. And so, and I can't imagine that an outcome would not be a greater sense of no longer feeling as lonely. Like I don't know how they could be with the group and stick with it and still
Yes.
feel absolutely lonely.
Yes. And it's attention because remember, we all live in me world. This is our culture. Every day when we wake up, we have 5,000 messages. Me, think of me, look deeper inside of me. So so in the group, we're expanding to a we lens.
Mhm, mhm.
And then you get that tension between the me and the we, and that's where the growth happens. So to give you a story, which I wrote about in my book, um,
Oh, well, wait a second, and the name of that book is and we'll put it in the program notes as well, Carrie, so tell me about your book.
well, it's directed to coaches and therapists, so it's not to the general public. It's called Social Therapeutic Coaching: A Practical Guide to Group and Couples Work. As
Oh,
far as I know, it is the only book out there with actual group coaching examples that
huh,
people can learn from. So in one of my groups, somebody was having relationship issues, and the group was saying, okay, well, don't be in the same room with your ex because things happen, and then the client said, well, we live in the same neighborhood. What if, I might show up in the same bar that she's at? The group said, well, take us with you. Take the group with you into that room. Take us and our desire for you to get out of high conflict situations. And the client was like, I don't think so. And everyone else in the group, they were like, no way. Carrie's always, telling me I want a relationship. And Carrie always tells me to come in here and talk with the group and give to the group, like, forget that. I just want to get fixed. Like the whole group went around like that. And I thought, oh my goodness, what am I? It's like one of those sessions. 2 weeks later, same group of people, someone else comes into group and says, I met somebody and I'm going on a date. And can you help me? How do I get nervous. I don't know what to say. And people did like really beautiful, intimate work with this person. And at the end of it, same guy who 2 weeks ago was like, forget the group, take the group with me. He says, thank you all so much. I'm going to take you with me on my date.
That I can just imagine, someone who has felt alone because they're different from everybody else, not accepted, to have that transition into just being able to tell themselves and mean it at a heart level, "I'm not alone anymore." Like,
Yeah.
that would be amazing. What a feeling that would be.
Yes. And the thing is that you can't make that shift cognitively.
Mhm.
If all it took was for you and me to tell ourselves, "Oh, I'm not alone," then none of us would feel lonely because we get plenty of those messages all day long. Just think differently.
Mhm.
So it has to be something in addition to that. We need others to help us grow and develop. We're a social species. We need others as we need to see ourselves as having the group with us. But you can only get there by exercising those muscles with others,
Mhm.
those relational muscles, those emotional muscles.
So, do you get a sense, well, let's say outside of someone has the opportunity to be in a group with you, are there other ways or tactics for a person to decrease that sense of loneliness that our listeners may kinda go, "Yeah, I could actually do that." What are some first steps?
Yes. So I have some of those. I also want to invite all of your listeners to join the Life Development Group. Not only do I lead groups, but I've trained people to lead groups. So
And is that a term people can search life development groups? Is that like a category of things, or what do they
I,
look for?
you can type in Life Development Group, and I'll come up. You'll see
Okay.
me there in Google. So um, and yes, if we're serious about transforming loneliness, then we have to be able to have some real
Mhm.
practical tools to give people. It can't just be that I'm the expert,
Mhm.
have to come work with me, although I want everybody to work. Yeah. So there are tools for looking outward. That's what's important when we're feeling lonely. Oh my goodness, we just are we're not seeing or feeling the
Mhm.
others or people around us. So one thing you can do, say you're in a social situation, um, and you're feeling really awkward or really shy, or you're totally in your head and you think, I shouldn't be at this party or this meeting. I don't belong here. Well, look outwards. Ask a curious question of
Mhm.
somebody. Ask them a curious question about whatever they're talking about. Ask
Mhm.
a get to know you question and then notice the response so you can get a better
Mhm.
sense of, is this someone I maybe could have a relationship with, or is it going to be a superficial thing? And maybe I should go to the buffet line and find someone else. Try to. So that's a way to look outward. And even though it feels uncomfortable, it's a stretch that people can do. We can. If someone's talking about nuclear physics and you don't know anything about it, you could still figure out some question to ask.
Mhm.
So that's one. This another one is my absolute favorite one. I call it the pre-ask. So, go to someone in your life and ask them if you can reach them when you're, and then fill in the blank, when you're lonely, when you're furious, when you're depressed, when you're whatever, when you're lying in bed and you can't move because you've thrown your back out, like you usually do. Whatever that is, go to somebody in your life and say, can I reach you the next time this is going on for me? It's a lower stakes ask. You're really asking, "Hey, can I have you with me while I'm having this miserable experience?"
Mhm.
And presume most people will say yes. And hey, if people say no, that's good to know too. That doesn't mean they don't like you. It might mean, they themselves can't handle that kind of call, or they're always busy, or they can't interrupt their day, or who knows. But most people say yes. So then when you are feeling lonely, you're maybe you've decided together beforehand, okay, I'm going to send you the sad faced emoji. I'm going to send you the really lonely emoji, or
Mm.
I'm going to text you something of capital letters, or can we talk for 6 minutes on the phone? So you can decide together what the kind of thing is
Hmm.
that you're going to need in that moment. So the pre-ask is, it's really one of my favorites. If we all did the pre-ask with somebody in our lives, again, we would all be much more emotionally, um, healthy.
It seems to me that that would have mutual benefit, because I know
Mhm,
if someone asks me something, in a way, I feel kind of flattered that they feel comfortable asking me. And that may, in
mhm.
fact, I may be having the same kind of thing, like you say. But, through all of this, a tactic like that, it occurs to me that to use it requires courage because I can imagine there's some fear about, am I going to be rejected? What are the consequences going to be? And how do you get people to move past the resistance? I mean, especially if they're normally shy. To do something like that would be really uncomfortable. So how do you help them move past that point of discomfort and exercise the courage to do either one or two of those ideas that you suggested?
Well, one thing is when I give talks on university campuses for loneliness, this is the students' most favorite one. It's actually the one they say they can do.
Hmm.
So I don't want to negate what you're saying. It is a stretch. If any, to get out of when we feel miserable, it's a stretch. It's
Mhm.
uncomfortable. It's not going to feel natural because what feels
Mm,
natural is staying
mm,
in the muck that we're in. So it is going to feel uncomfortable. You're trying to find the kind of bite size where it might be possible. We're Another place we practice this is working with me or joining one of my groups. And it's literally, we'll
mm,
call it a
mm,
practice. So
mm.
you get to practice with others. Then you feel like, okay, maybe I could try this with somebody in my life. I'm doing it with group, or I'm doing it with Carrie. I'm doing it with my family or my spouse.
Mm.
Maybe I can do it. I have more trust that I can take this risk on my own, and now have the experience that the sky won't fall down on me.
And then I imagine at some point, if it's done long enough, that becomes a habit, becomes automatic, right? It's probably easy. I would imagine in a group, it's easier to start that because you can model it and have people experience it, right? It
Yes.
makes it easier for them to go out on their own and do the same thing.
Yes. I used to do this with when I was writing my book and I was procrastinating all
Mm.
day. I would text, as writers do, and we have ways. And for our own projects, I would text a friend and say, please tell me to write. And then they text me back. And I tell you, I got out of it. And I would sit down and start writing.
I love that.
Yeah. Also have to take the risk of being kind of goofy and weird. That's part of
Mm.
the stretch.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I often opine about is the absence of community these days. And I actually in the place where I live here in Vancouver, they talk about the West Vancouver community, and I keep pushing back and say, you know what, community is defined by geography. It's defined by the connections that you have with people. And if you have all these little individuals all over the place, I don't think you can call them a community unless they're communing with. Like, guess what? Same root of the word, right? Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, and we the people have to build that. If there was the thing that was the most beautiful about what the people in Minneapolis did
Mm,
is they did it together.
mm,
They
mhm,
did it not already knowing whether who was the introvert or the extrovert. They did it without even knowing how to do it. They did it together. They built something that was bigger than each individual person.
That was pretty amazing. I loved reading about how they came together around that. It's almost well, it is too bad that you need a crisis to do that because it can really be done anytime. And so, if people are thinking, I wonder where I can practice this, curiosity and things like you talked about the barista. Can you recommend a number of different environments that might be ones where people could consider reaching out, making a connection?
Um, well, here, something I've started doing is this is more out there and more uncomfortable, but if I'm somewhere having lunch by myself, I
Mhm.
will in the room and see if anyone else is eating by themselves, and I just ask them if they'd like to have
Mm.
lunch. I am so done with how separated and uh we are from each other. So I'm like really out there in the extreme. So say your question again so I could say something less out there for people.
Well, just what are some different places where people can practices to take some of these steps. So you've talked about two so far, the barista, and also just when you're having lunch, you're in an environment where there's other people sharing some common activity.
Yeah.
Are
Yeah,
there
well, there
others?
are sure, the traditional prescriptions for loneliness, join a club, talk
Hmm.
to a stranger. Those are all really great. I totally I love those. Um, and we can be more creative. I worked with a family with a teenage girl who was, social media's been really hard on kids and feeling so different and isolated and lonely. What we did as a family, this emerged custom made for this particular family is we created a loneliness meter that
Oh,
went on the refrigerator with a little dial that could move. Anyone could move the dial. And then it became this more ordinary conversation inside the family. Oh, well, how lonely are, oh, well, what happened today that went way up or wait, oh, so again, less problematizing it and more, what can we create with our loneliness?
seems a lot of this is about raising the conversation around loneliness, making it just like I'm not connecting these two at all, but lately there's been a number of consultants that have been talking about menopause, like it's everywhere now, about consultants and things like that. Something that's been around forever, and loneliness has been around forever. But I think where we start to make progress is when we elevate that. It's an okay conversation to have. I think you said earlier, I don't think you used the term normalize it, but
Mary.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we again, we are taught that our emotions are inside of us, they're big and
Mm,
only they're mine and nobody else can see it or understand it, or we have to give our emotion it's a weird way to say it. We have to give our emotions away in order
mm,
to make them or to resize them. The more we hold on to the shame of feeling lonely, the bigger loneliness gets. The more we can be like, hey, I'm a 5 today on loneliness. How about you? The more we're kind of like that, the smaller it gets, the more we're building connection in our lives, and then that resizes the loneliness. I I don't I don't know that loneliness ever goes away, but it can
mm.
become a different size and shape.
That's interesting. Okay. You know, um, some people are away people, some are towards people. So some people want to not be lonely anymore, but other people want to be better connected. What are some of what are the benefits of feeling connected and being in relationship with other people? Why would someone want that?
Well, one reason, which everybody's talking about now, is longevity and healthy living.
Huh.
Are you familiar with the Blue Zone community?
I will say that I've got the book and I will not go beyond that.
Well, everyone's looking for the magic formula to live the perfect long life and eating well and exercise. There's five things, but two of the five are social. Your social
Huh.
connection, your community connections. So one reason for us all to build up our relational muscles is to
Mm.
live longer, healthier lives. The Surgeon General in the United States says that loneliness is the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Wow.
So if that's the kind of thing that
Mm.
motivates you, that's an excellent motivator.
Not to put a morbid spin on this, but I have a number of friends who have been at that age, and my daughter says, you are at that age now. Your your friends are disappearing, and you may too. But I've been fortunate to see some who, in their last months or weeks or days, are surrounded by friends, family, loving people like that, and it just makes me sad to think of someone who, in their last days, there's nobody there. I can't imagine how that it makes me sad thinking about it. I can't imagine what that person's life must be like.
Yeah. It makes me profoundly sad as well.
Yeah,
Really motivates me to keep doing what I'm doing
I
because
can imagine. Yeah.
we humans do not have to live in a lonely world. We can make different kind of world. And humans have, there've been other moments in human history that perhaps have been less lonely and less isolating than this.
Like I recall listening or reading about some anthropologists. They're saying there's some tribal societies when someone's done something terrible, their punishment is just to send them away, to isolate them from the family, and that's as good or worse than actually putting them to death, because they
Yeah.
end up dying a slow death from loneliness and disconnection.
Yes. And same in the prison system. Yeah. It puts you in solitary.
Well, yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. Yes, we're a social species. Our limbic brain, which that came after the reptilian brain, that's all your bodily functions. You don't think about it. That's the keeps everything running. What's next? Limbic brain. What's in there? Emotions,
Mm,
nurturing, play, social connection. It's not up here in the neocortex. I mean, obviously it's a whole brain and why,
mm.
that there are these finite boxes of things. I'm sure it's more complicated than that, but just for communication's sake, it's fundamental to who we are.
So maybe there's a call to action here, Carrie, which is regardless of our own sense of loneliness or not, if we were all just to reach out and
Yeah.
embrace other people, whether they have an issue, we have an issue or not, but just to be a gatherer, right?
Mhm.
That every single one of us can do that, because it's probably going to have a huge positive impact on some of the people that we reach out to who we didn't know they were alone. We didn't know that they were lonely. They didn't know they were lonely. But once you start to feel that, you want more of it. So, Carrie, this has been great. I want to make sure that in the program notes we put in your contact information. We put in some of the different groups that you talked about, that people can find yours or others, and encourage people to go out there and connect and build those threads and those connections that reduce the negative impact of loneliness. That's just, dial it down. We can all do something to help with that. So thank you once again so much for being with me here as a guest today. Oh, sorry. Where are you, Carrie? What part of the planet do your feet rest on?
My feet are in Arizona
Ah,
and my soul and stomach are New Yorkers.
oh.
So I'm a like a desert mermaid is what I call myself as a swimmer. And so I'm mostly in Arizona, but also New York City.
Very good. Well, it's just nice to put you in place, and to be hearing the great work that you're doing, and wish you nothing but success and continuing on with that. So thank you very much for being with me here today.
Thank you, David.
David Gouthro, Discover Fresh Perspectives. The only thing I can guarantee is that next week we'll have someone else with a different perspective. Come on back then. Subscribe now, because on Fresh Perspectives, every episode is an opportunity to explore new horizons and redefine what's achievable.